Welcome back, V.O.C. live here again on Sunday. We took a break last Sunday because some people were a little tired, which I get it. We had a long
Needed.
draft show. It was a crazy draft show. I appreciate everybody that came on. Nolan, Hoxie, Jonathan came in, talked. It was a good show. I thought for 3 hours we kept it alive as I was going on a road trip as well. So Trevor and Jerry did a great job here. Jerry's with me today. Trevor may or may not be on this show. He's at a function. Nobody knows, but we'll find out. He may pop. He may pop in. He may not pop in. Um, Today on the show, we're kind of going to go over the draft, NBA playoffs, and then talk about Bill Belichick and his girlfriend that's our age, Jerry,
Correct.
which is crazy to think about because Bill Belichick's the same age as like my grandparents. But yeah, it is weird. But we'll start off here with some NBA draft or NFL draft, not NBA draft, NFL draft. Look, my brain's already fried. A couple weeks off, brain's fried. Um, some notable late round picks here. I kind of did. Shador was probably the biggest one. I did some notable names in the second round. Will Johnson to the Cardinals, the cornerback from Michigan. They said medicals is the reason he dropped. He's first round talent all day. Mike Green to the Ravens. He had some off the field issues that kind of dropped him a little bit. Luther Burton, the Mizzou wide receiver to the Bears. Me and Jerry both love that pick. What a steal. The guy is. I saw a list of people, players in the SEC that had like over 1,200 receiving yards or whatever. And every player on the list was great, and he was on it as well. So I only think that he's going to be great for the Bears. I like it a lot. Ben Morrison, Notre Dame cornerback. He had the hip injury. Goes to the Bucks in the second round. First round talent, probably if healthy or if he would have came back. But thought those were interesting in the second round. I talked about Shador. The quarterback's taken in front of him. Tyler Shuck. That's how you pronounce his name, I guess. It's
hmm
not at all
That's
how it's
correct.
spelled out. He went in the second round to the Saints, which I thought was a shocker. I watched him play live. I didn't think he was. I thought he was like good for college in the system he played in at Louisville, but I didn't think he was like crazy, for NFL talent. But whatever. Saints take him in second. We'll see how that turns out. Jalen Milroe goes to Seahawks in the third. Dylan Gabriel goes to the Browns in the third. So I think the Browns basically just looked at the draft and said, we're going to draft as many guys as we can at quarterback and see what pans out. And then, of course, Shador goes to the Browns in the fifth. So it was very interesting, I think, to watch because we did the show uh, Thursday night, the first round, and we kind of all thought that Shador would go maybe with the Browns, the first pick in the second round. And then that didn't happen. You think, oh, maybe the Saints. And then he just continued to fall. So clearly, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was necessarily all about how he interviewed. I think it was his talent plus how he interviewed. And he just wasn't viewed as a starting quarterback, is essentially the way these teams look at it, I guess. If they don't draft you in the first round for a quarterback, they kind of view you as a backup. So it was very interesting.
No, and I think to really add on to that, like if you put Shador as a backup, then those interviews and everything else about him that got him those kind of lower remarks, being flamboyant, being, out there and about, which some guys do. Shador Sanders is not the first guy to talk his, what. And some guys have a little bit more talent, or at least have proved it more to get away with it. It's not like Cam Ward was a squeaky clean guy at every single moment in every draft process interview that we know of, right? But Cam Ward was the best quarterback in this class, at least consensus wise, and teams saw him as a starter. So if you're going to put up a little bit of the attitude, depending on where you look, right? If you're talented enough, we'll deal with it. But as a backup, now all the fun around him, do you really want that in your locker room for a guy
No,
who's not going to be on the field every Sunday, at least guaranteed, right? So that I think really like that's as we kind of look a week past all of this has been one of the things that I think has come out is like, yeah, okay, the pre-draft process probably could handle it better, right? You know, hindsight's 2020, but it makes sense when you think of it like, oh, if you're going to be a backup and you're graded as a backup by the NFL, having the media tour circus and talking you know what and all these things, and we don't know how much all of that is true, right? This is a lot of my favorite game of the anonymous source tells you that this guy does thing because that's always reliable and never been wrong ever, right? Um, Tells you that this guy does this or that, but yeah, it's not he was a big deal, right? At least wherever you looked. So do you want to put up with that? And Cleveland said at a certain point, this is just too good to pass up. And I don't blame them for it, right? I don't think he should have fell to the 5th round, even with that in mind. And some of the guys in front of him, I'm not convinced on Tyler Shuck. I'm not convinced on Dylan Gabriel either. But it makes sense that if you don't want to put up with it, you're not going to take the risk on it. And the 5th round became that point where, okay, he's a pain, but we're getting him in the 5th round. And that was the story of the draft. Some of these other guys we obviously talk about. Luke's already talking about the Bears getting Luther
Yeah, I'll
Burden.
pull it up.
You know I love that.
I hate the Bears, but Burden is a steal. Will be able to successfully play in the slot and should cook. Nolan seconded that, of course. No, he's a great player. I think that was he's first round talent probably. It just didn't work out with the teams.
Well, and also with him, you're putting him with a guy who likes to do fun things. I think that's what really excited a lot of Bears fans. Is yes, you could talk about the steal in terms of value, but Luther Burden at his time at Mizzou just did a lot of things because he was the best athlete, at least on the offensive side of Mizzou for those years. But most games could be the best player on the field when he was on the field, right?
Yeah.
Or very close to it. So, this is where the Bears win the offseason again. They do it every year, and they'll break our hearts later, right?
It's different this year, Jerry. It's different. It's different,
I hope
Jerry.
so.
I told you. I said, do we buy Super Bowl tickets now or later?
I know. I can't do it. I'm too hurt to start believing, but we'll see. That was a really fun pick, and a lot of these other guys, medical, off the field reasons make sense. But the one guy who had the most chaos went the furthest, and in some ways that kind of makes sense as we look back on it. In the moment, it was completely crazy, but now it's like, oh, as you look at all the guys on the screen, he was the one who had all the craziest stuff going outside of the guy from Marshall. But let's relax there.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah,
no,
it's
the simple fact of it's the Colin Kaepernick, the Tim Tebow, the Cam Newton thing, where it's like I don't want my backup to have more reporters around them than my starter, or my backup to get more noise if we don't think the talent is there for them to be the starter. And the Browns, when they made the pick for Shador, they were not very happy inside their war room. They were like, oh, yay. So it was the most Cleveland Brown thing to do, I think, to be like, oh, this guy's falling. Nobody wants him. We already drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round, which they must really like to draft him in the 3rd round. And they were like, you know what? No, we're going to take him in the 5th. So could it have been an owner decision? Maybe. But yeah, I think, my thing that I didn't like about the whole fall thing was like he was so hyped for so long of like he's going to be a first round. He could go 3 to the Giants. Hey, Cleveland could take him at 2. Oh no, Saints at 9 definitely, or Pittsburgh at 20, and it's like, oh, somebody may trade back up. And then he starts falling, and then all these insiders are like, oh, I knew this back in like January.
Mel Kiper didn't. I'll give him his credit.
Mel Kiper stuck to his guns, right? But Mel's different than these other guys. Is he doesn't really talk. I don't think he doesn't base his stuff off of what teams tell him. I think he bases it off of what he views, and he stuck to his guns. He went a little crazy. I mean, very crazy actually.
Mm-hmm.
Made himself look like a nut a little bit, but he's sticking to his guns. But you had these insiders that do talk to these teams like, oh, yep, we know why he's falling. Like I could have told you that in January or February, and it's like, well, where the hell were you then? But it's like, why were you hyping it up? Maybe because there really wasn't. We talked about this before. There really wasn't a whole lot of star power with the draft. Cam Ward gets drafted, and they talk about him for maybe 30 seconds. They go right into like Shador and everybody else. So it was very interesting. But yeah, I think it was the NFL is like no nonsense. They don't want to deal with stuff, and it's just the way it is. We have it's a funny. Okay, so Riley Mark's in here. Riley, I don't know what up with that picture. He's giving us good love here. This is Nolan's younger brother. So this is a funny comment here. Riley Mark for Joey Chestnut. Set the line, Caleb.
This is the voice of Casopoulos here. You're setting up a very important line.
So tune in. I was playing video games earlier as I was having a nice cool down Sunday. I don't know if it was raining where you are, Jerry, but it's raining here. It's moving east to west. A little different action.
We've had a lot less today. Today we did not. Yesterday was our rain day.
Yeah, so it's one of those days where you just kind of want to sit up in the couch and, bundle up in a blanket and, watch TV or play video games. So I was playing with Riley and all them earlier, and I had got McDonald's for lunch, and Riley was like, how many McChickens do you think you could eat? And I was like, maybe like 3 if you gave me like 3 McChickens. And he was like, I could eat 7. So I'm gonna start the conversation with that. So I set the line. I mean, I'll go with Joey Chestnut, but it probably won't be by much, honestly. Seven McChickens. He told me he could eat. Um, he told me his so Riley has lost some weight over the years. He's looking really good. So he was like, what's your like go to McDonald's meal? And I was like, I do nothing crazy. Usually it's like a burger, some fries, whatever. And he was like, oh, I'll tell you at my heaviest what I ordered. He would get a double quarter pounder, large fry, like 2 McChickens, and I was like, wow. So I think he could eat a lot. Oh, Dorito eating contest. Yeah, Riley likes to eat some Doritos. That's what he did before. Over under on bags, probably 10.5. I think both of them could tear it down. I know Jerry is like completely lost at what the hell's going on right now, but that's just what I think. Jerry also may be frozen at this point as well. I think Jerry's frozen. All right, Jerry's frozen, so I'm kind of on my own here with this thing. All right, so with Jerry being frozen, we'll move on from the Dorito eating contest between Riley Mark and Joey Chestnut, a viewer here. In the NFL draft, we will now go to the NBA playoffs. Eastern Conference round 2 is completely set. Completely lost Jerry here. I'll remove Jerry, and hopefully he can get back going here. So we have the Eastern Conference playoffs here. Round 2 is set. I'll kind of recap round 1. In the East, Cavs swept the Heat. Pacers beat the Bucks in 5. Knicks over the Pistons in 6. In a series that the Pistons very well could have won and maybe should have won. Had leads in majority of the games, just didn't work out for them. Didn't play great. The Celtics get the gentleman's sweep against the Magic. Cavs and Pacers are now playing game 1. Last time I checked, Pacers were up in that game. And then game 1 of Celtics and Knicks is Monday, being tomorrow Monday. Nothing. The first round of this NBA playoffs so far has really not been anything too crazy. Like I said, you had the Cavs who swept the Heat. They kind of blew them out in that last game, made them look goofy. Didn't do much there. Pacers beat the Bucks. You had the crazy exchange of Tyrese Halliburton's dad, like getting in Giannis's face. Now he's not allowed to come to any of the games recently, or for the remainder home and away of the playoffs. Like I said, the Pistons very easily could have won. They're a young team. I think they won 14 games last year. They make a big improvement to win games this year. And now, you get in a tight series with the Knicks. You end up losing that series. So it's a great year for the Pistons, realistically for what they have been. But in a series that you really could have won with young talent, it'd be interesting. I know Isaiah Stewart was hurt. Jaden Ivey didn't play, so you get those guys coming back. Luke Hoxie here. Refs had money on New York. Did they? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I think Jerry may be back.
I'm alive. I'm alive.
What happened there?
Technology. That's the only answer I have. I really don't know what happened. I just heard you were talking about McDonald's orders, and then my computers went black. So that's fun. But we're back.
Yeah, and we're back. Now, look, I carried the ship. Like I said the last time when we had the draft show, if some of the greatest hosts of all time did what I did, like, they may be somewhere in life. Mike Tirico, Jim Nance, me. That's just what I just pivoted and rounded the ship around here. For the last 3 or 4 minutes. When I saw you were lost, cut you out. I'd said he'll figure himself out. Now we're on to the East playoffs. We're talking about the Knicks Pistons series, where the Pistons very well could have won this series. I mean, they were up, and it felt like every game. Luke Hoxie said the refs had money on New York. Maybe, maybe not. But all in all, it was a good year for the Pistons. You win like 14 games, get a new coach, make a big jump with a young core, and now you move forward. But in a series that you very well could have won.
The East has been boring but fun.
That's what I literally just said that. I was like, this
Yeah,
has
I'm
been.
glad we're on the same page, because like that Knicks Pistons series was a lot of fun, even though the team that was higher seeded and probably would, everyone expected to win, won pretty handily, got through the series no problem. Same thing also with the Pacers Bucks, right? Where, okay, you don't have Dame, and obviously we're looking out for Dame after that injury. That's really tough. That might be a career ender. at that point. I forget, it was Achilles, I think it was.
Yeah, Achilles. Yeah, and
He's like
he's
35.
30. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
30. Yeah,
so
he's somewhere in there, mid
I
30s.
hope it's at the end, and if it is, that sucks. But I could see it being as such. But the East itself, within those series, you had some real beef, right? With the Pacers and the Bucks getting back and forth at each other, especially at the end with Halliburton's dad and Giannis. But also the chirping within that series before that moment. That how crazy it is that Tyrese Halliburton was like, "Yeah, my dad was probably wrong." You know how nuts that is. That the immediate response is, "Nah, family's wrong on this one." You don't see that one very often, so kind of kudos to him for like recognizing the situation. Not that I'm like, oh my god, who's right or wrong, but like that is a ballsy statement to make to go against the family, no matter what or who. And then the other side, right? You had the controversial call for the Pistons Knicks game that sent one of those games over with the non-foul. I think it's on Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah, Tim
That
Hardaway Jr.
yeah, some thought it was a foul or not, but like that's the fun of the playoffs, and you have these really good matchups that even though the better team, or at least the team that's I think both cases higher seeded, won, it wasn't easy. And it leads us to his good round, right? This good second round. We're probably going to watch the same thing. Of I think the Cavs are a better team than the Pacers, right?
Yeah,
They've been really really good this year,
let me
and you could
check
say the
the
same thing about
score.
the team who just won the title against the New York Knicks, right? But the chaos within that series is what I'll be watching for because yeah, I'm going to kind of stick to the chalk, kind of like it's a basketball tournament from March,
Yeah.
and go with those two for maybe not prediction's sake immediately, but just kind of keep that in mind. But I want some chaos within it, and the East has brought us that. That is for sure.
Yeah, no. So right now the Pacers are up at halftime 64-58. Yeah, no, I mean the Tyrese Halliburton thing with his dad is like he seems like the most chill, laid back person ever. And then for his dad to like it's not it's a little different than like the John Morant and his dad, where it's like they both like get chippy or have that feeling. Tyrese Halliburton, it just feels like he just goes and plays basketball for his dad to do that. And I had said he is not allowed to go to home and away games the rest of the playoffs. Maybe not be able to go to any games the rest of Halliburton's career, maybe his son's career. Who knows? But no, I mean, even like the Celtics Magic series, I mean, on paper, you think, oh, the Celtics are going to run through it. They're going to blow them out. They're going to beat them. The Magic win a game. And I remember game 5 in the third quarter, it was like a 5-point game. And then the Celtics just kind of ran away with it. So these, other than the Cavs, these teams are getting tested. Um, but I do agree with you. I think the Cavs will beat the Pacers probably 5 or 6 games, I would say. I think the Celtics will beat the Knicks probably in 5 or 6 games as well. Um, I don't know how many ankles Jalen Brunson's going to have this series, maybe 10. He keeps running through them like crazy. But I will say the one thing about Jalen Brunson is in big moments, he shows up. He did that at Villanova. He can do it for the Knicks. So that's what the Knicks are going to have going for them. So it's going to be fun. But it is very interesting to see kind of like, these series weren't really close, but they all got tested in certain ways.
Yeah, and I'm really keeping my eye on the Celtics Knicks series because the Celtics do a really, really good job of not fouling Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's a very good scorer, but one thing he did really well in Detroit on that aggressive defense, which I love having Detroit have a really aggressive defense, gave me like the
That's
bad
just
boys
that's
kind of
just what it
vibes.
is. It's just
It
how it should
makes
be.
sense. I loved it.
It's a
Right.
stone cold city.
Exactly. It works. It's playing the identity a little bit. But like Boston does a really good job of not getting Jalen Brunson, at least when the regular season, to the foul line a lot, which he did a lot in Detroit. And that can really hinder their game plan. The Knicks being because that slows the game down, lets it be faster in other parts of it. And the Celtics are so well rounded. They haven't changed that much from the team that won it all.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to put up with. The Cavs Pacers series I have a harder read on because Indy can do it. Like they have the tools to do it, but they've really got to be on it because the Cavs have been consistent, and wildly consistent, and have really really good defense. You have a guaranteed scorer in Donovan Mitchell, and they have good depth. There's not a lot of guys you can
Yeah.
pick on, which has been a lot of the. If we talk about the West, which we will hear probably in a second, that's going to be a theme of these playoffs. Who can you pick on? And for the Cavs, that's a really hard question. Who are you picking on to drop 40 or 50 on, or who can you not hide on defense? Which, if we want to talk about the Western Conference, is what happened to the Lakers.
Yeah, so we will now move into the Western Conference here. Thunder sweep the Grizzlies. I mean, they just continued their dominance. Nuggets win in 7 games last night against Clippers. Kind of pulled away in that third quarter there, kind of out of nowhere. It was one of those games where it's like, oh wow, now they're up by like 30 points. Who would have thought? Timberwolves knock out the Lakers in 5. You just talked about it. I mean, they played a game where they didn't play anybody off the bench in the entire game. I think they kind of went in with the all-in approach. JJ
Hmm.
Redick kind of got exposed in his first playoffs as a coach, which is crazy to think with Luka and LeBron that can happen, but it happens. Game 7 of Rockets Warriors is tonight. That's a very interesting series just based off the Warriors were up 3-1. Are they going to blow another 3-1 lead? Potentially. You have the old established team versus the young up and coming team where everybody's like, oh, I want to play them in the playoffs because they don't have any experience. It's like, well, I don't know if the Warriors wanted to play this team that's in the playoffs right now.
Well, the Warriors have been kind of this team that, especially for their star pieces, kind of got slapped together at the end. Think Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler showing up after the saga with the Heat, right? Where the Houston has slowly built this core with Sengun, Jalen Green. They bring in Van Vliet, right? So it's like, in a way, yeah, you have guys who are way more experienced in the playoffs on Golden State side and have all that going for them. But you have more continuity with Houston, where it's a team that's built and has worked together at least all season, let alone for longer, right? Dylan Brooks, as much as he's so annoying at times, a great addition to where he can still hit a 3 ball here and there and he'll defend all around. And you can work around. He doesn't need to score 20 for you guys to win, right? And he's molded into those roles really well. Sengun's a very, very good big man, very underrated. And this is a team, they're not, if I remember, the second seed. You don't just do
Yeah.
that by accident in this conference where you just watched the Timberwolves absolutely beat down on the Lakers, who are a higher seed than them, by just exploiting defensive missteps, right? Like, it's really nice to have a center guarding Rudy Gobert, who's again not an offensive powerhouse, but you put nobody up against him, he'll score the ball. Or Luka Doncic, who he could score 40, but he gives up 42.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the West has been more chaotic in terms of the bracket, right? On who you fill out and where and who's going where. The inter-series beefs and all that fun stuff, you don't have as many storylines there. It's not like the Lakers and Timberwolves are going at it too much outside of Anthony Edwards absolutely making fun of all the predictions, which that's what he's going to do. He's the biggest, talker, because we are a family show here, so I won't say the whole thing.
No, of course. No, he told Obama he'd beat him.
Exactly. He said he beat MJ, but that's the type of guy he is. And you need a little bit of that. He's fun, but outside of that, it wasn't like Rudy Gobert was talking over to Jackson Hayes every 2 minutes. Right.
Well, Jackson Hayes was lucky he got on the court in that series at certain times.
John Morant, instead of being on the floor, was doing this to the camera. That's about it, right? So it's not like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was giving him any, words or anything like that. So inter-series beefs outside of Denver, LA, which was the best series of the first round by a mile, even though Game 7 didn't live up to the hype. Everything else was fantastic. You have the Aaron Gordon winner, the resurgence of Russell Westbrook, but also at the same time, Kawhi, Harden, Nicholas Batum got some really good minutes. Derrick Jones Jr. had fun. That was a series where you really watched the best of the NBA, which times can be a weird watch and annoying watch. That was fun. That was watching a bunch of chess pieces with who goes where. Like, even after the first quarter of that Denver game, when Derrick Jones Jr. is defending everyone really well, has 6 points, you're like, oh my God, did Ty Lue figure it out? Like, is this how they do it? Then no. That's where this can be real fun. And that's where the second round, wherever we go, is going to get really interesting. OKC, just good everywhere. Like, your weakest link is probably Lou Dort, but he's a fantastic defender. He just doesn't score the ball. Good thing they had 4 other guys who could do that, no problem. And whoever hits up Timberwolves
the MVP on their team.
And whoever puts up with the Timberwolves, that's the same. The Timberwolves, you just saw them take care of business, and either matchup will be really chaotic and fun. So the West is probably where the better ball is. The East, weirdly, has the better storylines.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is I know we talked about when the Nuggets fired Mike Malone, but it's like they're still a good team. Like, they still have talent. They still have, Joker. Jamal Murray went off for a game there. You talked about the resurgence of Russell Westbrook, Michael Porter. Like, they have talent. So they have experienced time of winning a championship against the Thunder team that they've kind of blown through the regular season. Everybody's kind of like, are they a regular season darling? And, kind of, can they keep it up? Now you're really going to get tested in a series where they didn't get tested in the first round, where the Nuggets did get tested against an experienced team. So that's going to be interesting. Rockets, Warriors. it just kind of feels like Steph Curry's going to do something crazy tonight, and he's going to have that magic, and they're going to pull it out. That's just kind of the feeling that I get. It's going to be like the Olympics where it's like we just
Mhm.
can't stop this guy. He's going to do something. But then they go up against the Timberwolves, which, like you said, were lower seed than the Lakers. But you have Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert was kind of that first team All NBA guy that everybody voted him for just because centers were on there, which has now changed. But so that will be interesting because it's about matchups too, because the matchup really helped the Timberwolves,
Mhm.
and now potentially whoever they play, how can it change? So it's going to be interesting. But everybody that was like, "Oh, the Rockets, you want them? They're going to roll over." Clearly, they're showing on. They have a very good coach who, if some stuff wouldn't have happened off the court, would probably still be the coach of the Celtics and probably would be a championship winning coach, in my opinion. So they have that. My question for you, Jerry, because this is like just NBA straight talk now. It's like when teams get eliminated or whatever. What is your thought of some of these teams like trading for like a Kevin Durant, a Giannis to like you break up the core of the young players, but you go and get a star?
You know, the teams that will do it are the teams that feel like they're one piece away. And I know it's pretty simple analysis, right? But like, this is a fun one. What if Giannis goes to San Antonio?
Yeah,
Right? What does that look like? That's a team that's out in the playoffs right now, right? But it
Twin
has their
Towers.
generational guy. Do you bring in someone like that? Um, and it's also, like Kevin Durant and Giannis I think are very two different classes. With Kevin Durant, he needs to be on a team that's either just got bounced in the playoffs right now or is maybe one of these game sevens. Don't go back to the Warriors, but like he'd be a
Yeah,
guy that would really work at like Houston if he goes there for cheap, right? Because he is still very, 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 very good. I don't want to discredit Kevin Durant, but you only have so many years with him. He's going to start turning into somewhat of a rental at some point because you can't keep doing it for that long. He does not have the endurance of LeBron. He's had more injuries. Like, just let's call a spade a spade. So he's going to go to a team that's either in the playoffs right now and gets bounced later, or a team that just got bounced. Right? For a guy like Giannis, you could put him almost anywhere, and I think that makes it more intriguing. But also, as much as all the banter around Giannis has been like, oh, it might be his last game, this and that, the guy's been nothing but really praised Milwaukee for everything he's done. They've done for him. This is a guy that came in the second round, was very lowly valued, had to bulk up a lot. They gave him the space to grow, and the city has really embraced him, and he has won a title there. Sure, he could leave, but I don't want to make it like oh my god, he's going, right? Like if he's worried about legacy, which he definitely could be, sure. But this is also the same guy who's like, this is sports. He said that
yeah,
right in a press conference, which he was fairly right to do. I'm not criticizing him for it, but it's like if you told me he stayed in Milwaukee because he loves it there, he loves everything he's built around there, and almost is like his teammate Damian Lillard and stays there longer, and if not for maybe too long, that would not shock me. But any moves to make for him, one, it's going to be way more steep than it probably was just months ago because the Luka trade reset everything. And I think teams are going to be more fearful of looking like Dallas. Even if you
yeah.
argue in 5 years from now, if let's say it doesn't work out in LA, no one wants to be Nico Harrison. Like that's been such a trade talked about that you have social media teams for different companies everywhere making reference to your basketball trade. That's not good. So if anything, his price became steeper because Milwaukee doesn't want to be team two. They don't want to be the next team that's like, oh my god, you gave up Giannis for Drew Holiday or pick whatever, or De'Aaron Fox if he goes to the Spurs. What? Like that's not going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
But also again, it's not a guarantee he moves because he's one of those few guys that really loves the place he was and doesn't have that like path of superstar straight out of college, tried to reach the spot, missed there. He's built himself up in Milwaukee, so I could see him staying there.
Well, I think it's also interesting, and this was talked about. I think the Timberwolves talked about it when they traded Cat. They got two guys back for the rotation,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lakers when they traded for Luca, you gave up two guys in your rotation for one guy in your rotation. So I think that's going to be the interesting thing moving forward. If more teams view trades that way, other than just we just need a star, we'll give up three or four pieces or whatever. So I think that's going to be interesting moving forward to see it because if you're some of these teams, do you keep your core? Like if you're the Rockets, do you just keep that core and pray that they continue to go together and they grow and they build, kind of like what the Thunder are doing, where you keep a core and you build it, or do you say, hey, we need to add a guy that's a go-to guy, but we need to give up, three young guys and a couple picks. So I think that's going to be interesting. But I never thought of it in a way for it's like, okay, we give up one good player or one great player and we get back two rotation, so you build the depth, because I think that's the one big thing in the NBA is the depth is never really built out fully for a lot of these teams. Lakers proved it, right? They had no depth. So I think that's gonna be interesting with some of these big names where it's like, will Giannis leave? I don't think Giannis is gonna leave. He doesn't want to leave. He's won a title in Milwaukee. It kind of gives him everything he wants. Like there's nobody breathing down his throat, being like, you got to win here. You can't win. You haven't won. It's like he's already won. He's not gonna be worried about it. Um, Kevin Durant, I don't know what the hell Kevin Durant wants to do. He's one of those guys that nobody ever knows. It's like he goes to a place he wants to go to, and then he's like, I have to leave, or I don't like it anymore. So I'll probably get banned from life now from him, probably for saying that, which is fine. Um, but that's just like the feeling I get with him, where it's like he wanted to go to the Warriors, and then he's like, I need to leave. Wanted to go to the Nets, play with Curry, needed to leave. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to view. It's like, okay, so for some of these teams, do you make a trade? Do you not make a trade?
Yeah, and I think your point of like rotation guys for stars is so well taken because of the teams that are in the playoffs right now. There is the way coaching has changed. And this is where when we start talking about later in this show, not today, but in the future, we start talking about the NBA offseason. One thing that's going to be very interesting is what a lot of coaches have become very good at is picking on your weakest guy.
Yeah.
That is, again, where I look back. The most obvious series is Minnesota versus LA, where you have a team with no depth, and one didn't have a big man. So, again, Rudy Gobert, not an offensive player by any means, right? Just is not a great scorer. Let's not act like he is. Was dropping absolutely fantastic numbers because he was getting defended by Swiss cheese, right? And then on the other end of the floor, JJ Redick tried his damnedest but couldn't hide Luka Doncic defensively. So anytime you could just get the matchup you wanted, whether it was Ant Edwards or anybody else on him. So it makes that superstar conversation so much different because, yeah, even though the salary cap and all these things have not changed as much, the way teams attack teams has. And in a way has made teams like Oklahoma City, where, yes, you have a star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but you have four other guys who are very good, right, who are not liabilities necessarily in one shape or form. Or a guy like Norman Powell for the Clippers is regained value because he shuffles his feet and hits a three here or there. Like those, not being a guy who can get attacked is so much more valuable now. And it makes those trades so much more interesting because it's not just let's not do what the Suns just did and bring together all the stars and have three guys that in return we could drop 90 on combined.
Yeah.
And it'll make the NBA offseason very interesting. It's where I think KD becomes like a rental. So we can move on from this, but that's where I kind of go with it. But it's very well point taken, Caleb, that the rotation matters, depth matters, because teams are attacking your weakest link and they're doing a really good job of it. It's not that hard to do, but NBA coaches have just gotten better at it.
Yeah, no, I think there's now a shift in how the NBA views it. It's not like, okay, we need to get two or three big stars together. It's like we need to build out a full roster. You know what I mean? Like, how can we do that? So that will be very interesting to see. But game one tomorrow for Thunder Nuggets, game 7 to decide who plays the Timberwolves tonight. Moving over to a guy that's very much under attack as of recently, Chapel Bill down there in North Carolina. Bill Belichick and his girlfriend Jordan Hudson. So Bill Belichick did a CBS Sunday morning interview, basically promoting his book last Sunday. His book is The Art of Winning. Bill Belichick talks about winning. Why not? He's, won the most Super Bowls for an NFL coach. He's number 2 for wins of all time. Great coach. Viewed as the NFL GOAT. His buddy Nick Saban viewed as the college GOAT. So why not? I want to listen to Bill Belichick about winning. During the interview, some drama is brought up because the reporter brought up, like, hey, you got this new girlfriend. You're kind of not being the Bill Belichick that everybody knows, which is like on to Cincinnati. He's lightened up his life. He's different. The Instagram post, So he started talking about it. The reporter asked how they met, and his girlfriend Jordan kind of butted in, and she's like, "We're not going to talk about that." And that kind of stole the whole show of like everybody now is like, "What the hell is going on with Bill Belichick?" He's 73. He's dating a 24-year-old, which to me that's nothing too crazy. It's just it's life. This is the world we live in. This happens all the time. If love is love to me. I love love, Jerry. So if Bill Belichick's happy, I'm happy for him.
Kale the romantic.
That I'm all about love. Right? You know, love. I love love. I want to see people prosper. If he's happy, I don't care as long as it's legally binding. Fine, I'm good with it. Which this is. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's very very interesting that the whole thing is the whole thing has now been like blown crazy. From the interview to now everybody's like, what the hell is going on? And now it's like backstories of like I saw an article I think the New York Post did about how she's like accumulated like $10 million in real estate. So everybody's like, what's going on? Is she just like the like money stuff? And now I think Bill Belichick's daughter-in-law is kind of being like she's a bad publicist. Like, what's going on? My biggest thing that kind of irritated me with the whole thing is in the interview, he's the head coach of North Carolina. He's wearing a Navy sweatshirt. That
That's
made
what he does.
it's like the most Bill Belichick thing. It's like you're the head coach for North Carolina. Please wear some Tar Heel gear. But I think this whole thing is his girlfriend's name's Jordan. He was meant to be at North Carolina.
I mean, I guess if that's the backhanded way you bring him back to Chapel Hill,
He
go
loves Jordan.
crazy.
Loves Jordan.
You know, I one have to make it clear to our large audience
Yeah,
here,
you do. You
which
have to.
thing here is I do work for a CBS affiliate station, so a lot of the stuff with the interview, I don't know anything more than you guys do, which is take that for what you will. It's not like I got to see the whole thing or something like that. But what I find so fascinating about this whole situation is like at every moment now, like this is the big moment that blew everything up to the out of the water. All this stuff has been bubbling in like Twitter chats, chat rooms and all these places, right? About like, what's Bill Belichick doing? What's going on with his girlfriend and all this? But everyone's just like, oh, it's whatever. Like this is all the college football weirdos who have nothing to do in February. Fine, right? But this is putting more pressure on Bill Belichick to have to win at North Carolina because if I am any team in the ACC that's trying to compete right now, and I'm competing with a recruit from North Carolina, I'm just going, look at this. Do you think you're going to be the main priority right now? Look what's going on over there. Like,
well, they just lost their best defensive player to Ohio State. He just transferred out.
Well, and like these other, and okay, there's no other coach right now in college football, let alone American football, that is like Bill Belichick. Right? This guy who has so many rings, as Luke might mention, they might come from all the same quarterback or damn near, right? So, he's very polarized, but again, he's won so many damn titles. Like at a certain point, you got to give credit where credit is due, no matter where you go. Yeah. But like, especially college football coaches, they are so meticulous. So many of them are about image. They
Control
do so many things, right? Like even the second most celebrity coach probably right now, or maybe more celebrity depending where you look, would be like Deion Sanders. He's borrowing guys from the press room who write mean things, right? So these guys care about controlling narrative, controlling the image of their program, of themselves, because if any inch they could take to make an advantage, they will, right? And especially in the ACC and these Power Four conferences, we act like Mario Cristobal isn't down there in Miami right now using this to beat recruits at North Carolina. Hell, even Manny Diaz at Duke, right across the street, a program which in terms of football is lesser than North Carolina. He's probably going, hey, up the street, you see all the chaos that's going on there? Do you really want to put up with that? Do you want your kid to go through that? And I get it. I don't think Bill Belichick's here for 18 years, right? He's not trying to be Matt Campbell at Iowa State and build the program up from, the humble beginnings in Chapel Hill. But like, you don't want to add things. You don't want to add pressure to yourself. And all this is doing is that. Because if he goes 6-6 this year, if he was just a normal year one, like a lot of coaches, I get it. Again, Bill Belichick, different things. Deion Sanders went 4-8.
Yeah.
Right? He kept a job. Right? But also Deion Sanders, for the most part, like he didn't do this.
No,
He just said,
no,
"Hey, I want guys to win here." Yeah, he did a little brass, but it wasn't like, "Oh yeah, let me do this morning interview and then have everything kind of blow up in our face," right? But now, if he's not successful, everyone's gonna go, "Look at all the stuff he was doing. He's not helping us win." And that's the one thing that is the ultimate equalizer. We talk about coaches, we talk about programs, etc. Are you winning? I mean, that's what the fans care about. That's what they hired him for, right? So it's like, yeah, sure, he wore a navy sweater to his CBS evening interview or morning interview, all this, but all this stuff is going on. We have not talked about North Carolina football, and
no.
if they are not successful, everyone's going to start pointing back to this, and it's just going to keep amplifying, and it is unneeded for them. And like it's unnecessary. And this is a guy who is known for cutting out the fat, in New England, and was trying to get as much of the stuff again onto Cincinnati. Doesn't take the media questions, doesn't do all this stuff, and now he's out here having all his like life examined through this lens, and people are just looking at him. And like, if you keep looking, you find things. That's about anybody. We're just not important enough, Caleb. No one's trying to
No.
dig up dirt on us, right? But you
Maybe,
can,
maybe. You never know, Jerry.
hey, maybe with this take, surfaces somewhere. Maybe they'll start
Who
looking into
knows?
me. I'm a
Who
little
knows?
boring, but again, take that for what you will. But I keep going back to this whole thing of like, when we get to September, October, North Carolina will get the coverage because Bill Belichick's there. But are we going to be talking about a team that is trying to win the ACC or a team that just lost to Boston College? Or
Yeah.
a team that who didn't take home the Liberty Bell against Duke and Manny Diaz because they've been quiet but just been trying to recruit, build a little bit here and there. And when that if it goes that way, things are going to get real dicey real quick. Especially because they wrote his contract in a certain way where it's not going to cost him a lot if he goes back to the NFL, but he's not going to go back to the NFL if he can't win in college.
Well, but nobody's going to want him in the NFL because of this type of stuff.
Oh yeah, but
It's like,
like they wrote his contract in a certain way to have certain things go here. That makes these also easier to get rid of you.
yeah,
It was a bet on himself. Which if this stuff didn't happen and he was winning in North Carolina, some team would have probably swung at him at some point. It's Bill Belichick. Like again, we talk about all the rings, we talk about all those things, but that's what I find so crazy is that for a sport that so many people are so paranoid, like, could you imagine if Brent Venables at Oklahoma did this? Right, I get it. Brent Venables is not Bill Belichick, and that context is very necessary. But like, that guy would be out of a job.
yeah,
Lincoln Riley bans people from the press room at USC if they say something that he doesn't agree with. Like that's how tight these people are, and the people he's competing with are. And he probably knows more ball than a lot of them. There's a reason they're all college coaches, right? But they also don't do this. They don't put unnecessary stuff around them, and we're not even in fall camp.
no, yeah. Well, it's not even summer yet, so yeah, no, it's all. I mean, he was also pressed on, Robert Kraft and kind of Robert Kraft. I don't think is mentioned in the book at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was also pressed on, he was asked like Robert Kraft said you were basically fired and is viewing it as you were fired, and he's like we mutually parted ways. So he was also pressed on that. So it just all in all, it wasn't just her and kind of her interjection into the interview. It was just the whole interview as a whole it was awkward. It was very like, it was one of those interviews where it's like, I get you're promoting a book, but why did you do it? You know what I mean? Like that's what it felt like. But the two biggest things that I have is like a guy that has so much control or has had so much control. And basically, there's people this week talking about it, is like he would basically tell you like these are going to be the things that are talked about and these are going to be how you respond to it. So for a guy that's so buttoned up usually, for him to be this way is it's crazy to think, but I think he views college as X's and O's wise, I'm the smartest coach that there is. Out of all these coaches, I'm the smartest. Like, take away the talent, it doesn't matter. Which in college, unlike the NFL, talent gap is much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have lesser talent and you are a great coach, you're probably going to lose that game still. Just talent. It's not like the NFL where you can win a game being a bad team. So I think he kind of views this as, and this is a terrible approach, and this is an approach where it may not work in North Carolina because it has this approach of, I have such more of an advantage over these other coaches, it's not going to matter. So I can be goofy, I can be fun, I can be this personality that I've never shown before, which is great that, he's showing his personality and this is who he is. And I like like this Bill Belichick is funny to me. The Instagram post, everything. Like, I love seeing a guy. It's like when Tom Brady went to Tampa. It's like you're so buttoned up, and then you get to see who these guys really are. It's fun to see, but if you're going in with the approach of like, okay, I can have fun and do these things just based off of I'm a great football coach, it's not going to work out very well. But time will tell. But yeah, I mean, like, will game day be there? Without a doubt next year.
Hmm.
Guarantee it. And that's what North Carolina wanted. They want that type of exposure, not because of like what's going on with Bill Belichick's life. Like, who's controlling Bill Belichick is basically the question here. Let's get to some of the comments. Nolan Mark said, those eyes change a man. Maybe. Um, you never know. I mean, great eyes. That's maybe what he loves. I love how this picture we have on the screen is she's looking directly in the camera and he's like pointing to like his eyes are pointing to the sky. I love it. Most Bill Belichick thing ever. Luke Cox said he wishes he was Jim Harbaugh. In college, yes. Pros, I don't think he wants to be
That's it.
Jim
Probably
Harbaugh.
not. No.
College wise, yeah, he'd probably want to be Jim Harbaugh, successful coach, won a national title, that type of thing. But pro wise, no, no, no. He'll take his 6 Super Bowls, 8 total that he has as an assistant. But no, it's very interesting. Because like I said, you have a guy that's so buttoned up, doesn't let anybody know what's going on. Doesn't he kind of just like in his shelter, like doing his little things, being a master manipulator himself, kind of changing it up a little bit. But look, this is who he is. Maybe he thinks he's older, and so why not be this way? Why not have fun? It is crazy to watch. Um, but time will tell on this. Is it six? If he goes, say they're 6-2 after 8 games, no one's gonna care.
Oh yeah, this is water under the bridge.
Yeah, no one's gonna care that she's linked on emails or whatever happens. Like, who cares? Like, who cares? And she probably views it as a way of like, I'm younger with the new generation, so I can help Bill. I can help him get recruits. So I think that's the way that they probably view it more than anything. She doesn't believe she's harming him. Bill probably doesn't believe that he's being harmed, recruiting wise or any other way. She probably looks at it as, look, I am, a younger person. I can help you kind of with what's going on. I can help you with Instagram and all that kind of, the personality wise. So in her defense, she probably doesn't feel like she's doing anything wrong, and she probably looks at that interview and goes, no, we're supposed to be talking about the book, not our relationship. And I get it. Um, it was just one of those things where it was kind of like, if you're gonna do this interview, you got to know that's going to be talked about. So I don't think CBS did anything wrong by asking it. It's a brought up topic. She's in the room, like it's going to be talked about. The sole purpose is not going to be just to talk about the book. Like, so I don't know, but time will tell on this. It was very interesting. He does not wish he was Jim Harbaugh. I will say that. But no, it's very interesting, and we will see. We will see. Anything else, Jerry? Did you bet the Kentucky Derby?
I did not bet the Kentucky Derby, but of course, sovereignty beat journalism in 2025. That's just an omen. That feels like the way we've talked about this year very much. So yeah, all the journalism jokes got in. Also, shout out Pat Forty for wearing that Mizzou hat in the Winner's Circle interview because Mizzou J School is best in the country. So, I'll always rep. And Bush Apple's back. Caleb, have you gotten any yet?
I don't drink Busch Light.
Well, Bush Apple's worth it.
I don't. Every time I've drank Busch Light every time I've drank Busch Light in my life, I've thrown up. So I don't drink it.
I'm telling you, Bush Apple is fantastic.
Nope, no, I'll drink apple juice instead.
You are missing out.
Nope.
I am telling you this. This is not even a guy trying to plug AB, in St. Louis here. No, that stuff's fantastic. So
nope.
I drink I
drink one fine American Pilsner, and that's it.
It's okay. We can grow up a little bit. We can try different things.
No, it's not.
You're an adult.
Happen. No,
I expand your life. You can expand your palate. You can expand your tastes.
No, I'm not. I like my ways. I'm set in my ways. There's one fine American Pilsner that I like. I will drink it.
How old are you?
25, Jerry.
You sound more like Chapel Bill, like a 72-year-old man.
I'm the old Chapel Bill. That's who I am. I'm the old, not the new Chapel Bill. Maybe if I find a 24-year-old, maybe my life may change as well.
What do you want to Cassopolis? What's next? On to Dowajak?
Maybe. Could be.
Whatever town.
Could be a big thing. I mean, there's a lot of moving and shaking going on around here. I will tell you what, Bush Apple will not be going in my mouth.
I'm telling you, they're missing out. You are missing out.
I don't think I am. Like I said, every time I've ever drank Busch Light in my life, I've thrown up. So
I never tells you there's 16 of them, but You
No,
know,
look, it doesn't matter. It's not my thing. I'm glad that you like it. Someone's comment. Now we're talking about alcohol here. Caleb, you got to try some Stella. No, I'm good.
you could pass on Stella. Stella's fine. I like Stella, but yeah, I get it. Like, but that's all the same vein. Like if you're set between all the same beers, okay, I get it. Apple's fantastic. Apple's fantastic. So yeah, this is a children's show, but we are of age, so we're not
Yeah, no,
doing underage
there's
drinking.
nothing. There's nothing wrong with this. Maybe we do a drinking podcast someday. Maybe that
Who
could
knows?
maybe be a thing.
Who knows? Maybe if I
Um,
ever make it all the way up north again,
maybe. I mean, that was a great time. It was a mess, but it was a great time. But we
we're
figured
there
it
much
out,
worse.
and we're here now, and we got through this show, so that's good. NBA playoff. I think the Pacers are still up on the Cavs. Game ones for Thunder, Nuggets, Celtics, Knicks tomorrow. Game one of Timberwolves, either Rockets or Warriors, will be Tuesday. Rockets Warriors game 7 is tonight. So we'll see how that goes. We'll break all that down next week. Probably see what else is going on in the world of sports. Trevor should be back with us. Who knows? We can, it's just a rotating cast of characters going on around here. Jerry's not here one day. Trevor's not here one day. We do a 3-hour show where everybody at the end of it looks like they want to hurt each other, but we got through it. And we're going to keep moving and shaking. So with that being said, thanks for watching.